Hey there, you're either watching or listening to The Climb. My name is John Sarakis, and this is brought to you by the Digital Mastermind. Today, we have a fantastic guest because it produced something different in me, something for this monologue. And it's a thought that I've had, and I know a lot of great leaders have shared this, but business can be whatever you want it to be. I think a lot of us get fixed on the way that it should be or the way that somebody else has done it before. And doesn't always have to be a certain way. We forget that you can make it anything you want, whether you're even an employee or you are the business owner. It's up to you to create that world. The world is your oyster, right? You're in charge of your own destiny. And I think over the last few years, a lot of us have forgotten that. We've looked at things a specific way out of a mode of survival, not out of a mode of optimism or what we hope it to be or what it can be. Kind of we removed that dreaming element. And I think some people just get hooked on something and they don't realize that you just have to say, fuck it, what are my goals and how do I have to get there as long as I don't hurt anybody? We get entirely too attached. And in some cases, this decimates entire markets if somebody's going to go the wrong way or entire companies. But on the other side, great companies emerge when they really try something unique and different that's authentic to them because they're not afraid of what it is that they want to do. And in that, Dave, why don't you come out here? Hey. And all that spurred from just our guest and my thinking and listening to the last episode because it's fractional, right? He's a fractional CMO that offers training. And 20 years ago, if somebody was to offer that, people would have just been like, what are you kidding me? We need somebody full-time in that corner office or just that office. They would never look at it that way. And I think now, whether it's remote or whether it's the fractional side of things, people are taking a step back and looking at business differently and realizing you don't have to do it the way it's always been done.
100%. I mean, so maybe this is the pendulum swing back from the outsource everything. Because when I think of a fractional, I think of that's like a partnership. That's not just that's not a vendor relationship. That's a partnership. Mm-hmm. We do that. You know, we are a fractional IT team for some of our clients. So, you know, in that model, it's a partnership. You're invested in their success as well. You know, you don't want them to fail because then you lose a client. You know, you're invested in their path. So I like to call it the hyper specialization economy. You know, you're just focus on what you do really well. So in this, the guest is
Casey Stanton.
Yeah, but I mean,
Fractional CMO. Right? Yeah.
So he knows what he does really well. He can bring that to his clients, even though his clients can't afford a very high-end CMO full-time. So he's hyper-specialized, and they're going to borrow some of it. So I love the model, and I've been a proponent for it for a long time.
Yeah, and he's got a network which he gets into, and this is a longer episode where he talks about his climb, which is fantastic. So I recommend everybody listen to it because I think there's going to be lots of takeaways. But to that, I think more people need to look at when you have that gap. There's the fractional CFO, the fractional CMO, the fractional. I think there's COOs now, CSOs for sales. What I would caution people on though is they're not silver bullets, right? So you're not going to, some of these people's day rate's going to be, $7,000 a day or something like that. You're not going to pull this person in and magic's not going to occur. I would make sure that you have a budget in place. You have the KPIs that you want this person to achieve. Don't necessarily let them set it themselves. Have them create the plan for you to get whatever it is that you want.
And I would also say you have to think about these people as employees. There's many times that I run into instances where someone's like, well, why am I paying for that? I'm like, well, I mean, if you would hire your own employee, they would have to do these tasks that might not seem valuable to you, but they have to do them and you have to pay them for it. So, that there are sometimes, there are things that people have to do in order to get to the big result. And you have to be prepared to pay for those time. We get those questioned a lot. And it's like, yeah, that's part of the process.
Yeah, somebody has to do it, and somebody wants to get paid to do it.
Right.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of charity, and we've seen that a lot. And some of that too, I could see people angling for negotiation, but I think it's now you have to take a hard stance, saying no, that's somebody's job, and that's what they're going to get paid for.
Yep.
Yeah. Without any further ado, I say we get right into this week's episode with Casey Stanton. And please go ahead and like, share, let us know what you think. And also register if you would be interested at digitalmastermind.com and going to our annual summit, October 17th, 18th, and 19th. Thank you so much. Casey, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, excited to be here.
All right, man. I'd like to start out with your climb. How did you get here?
Yeah, great question. So in 2008, I graduated from Michigan State University, and I graduated with an environmental policy degree because I didn't really understand real life. I thought I could get a degree in environmental policy and have some kind of, long-term career and make good money. I remember my dad telling me that I had to make six figures. He was like, to have the lifestyle that I think you want for yourself, son, you're going to need to make six figures. So I graduated in 2008 from Michigan State with this bachelor's in environmental policy. And I'm excited to kind of enter the workforce, and I start interviewing anywhere I can. And I can't find any environmental policy jobs. And honestly, I'm not a very big policy wonk. So I really just like the kind of the nature of things. I spent times in the fields, in plant pathology and plant biology. And in all honesty, I probably would have studied mycology had the professor of mycology not been on sabbatical. So I graduated with this degree, and it's an environmental policy degree, which is like a political science degree, which is like kind of not so useful in the world unless you want to be in politics. And 2008 came with it, the housing crisis. So I graduate into kind of record unemployment, but I'm not seeing that because I don't really know. I don't know economics. So I'm applying for jobs, and there's this great job that I find in the Detroit metro area at Canon copy machines. And I was like, you know what, man, I've always wanted, I'm into photography, always wanted like a Canon camera. They said that they'd give me a discount on a Canon camera if I sold their copy machines. I was like, okay, this sounds cool. I interviewed with them. I did a ride along with this guy. This guy was like, and it was 2008. It was the term metrosexual was kind of like a big deal, right? And this guy was like well-dressed in a pink shirt. And the guy took me along on ride-alongs and just slayed it. He was just awesome. He was just a killer salesman, and he was able to sell big copy and fax machines. So I thought he and I had a really great vibe, and I was going to get the job. And long story short, I didn't get the job. And maybe I'm still a little sour about that. But the economy continued to tank after that. And had I gotten that job, I would have, moved into an apartment. I would have had to get a new car because I would have been driving everywhere. And, for like door-to-door sales. And then the economy would have absolutely crushed me. I would assume that a lot of copy machines weren't sold in the latter half of 2008, right? Everyone was just trying to figure out what was going on with all these foreclosures, everyone losing their job, pretty scary times. So I reverted back to my hometown, Northern Michigan, just north of Traverse City, Michigan. If you're familiar with Michigan, it's on the Pinky. It's at the very tip of the Pinky is where my family's from. I'm actually from a peninsula on a peninsula on a peninsula on a bay within a bay. It's kind of a magical place up there. And I couldn't find work. So I moved back into my parents' basement with a college degree and kind of felt like a loser. And knew I could do something, but didn't know where to go. Didn't feel like I had any plans. And my dad grew up through the IBM kind of community. He graduated college, locked in with IBM, and stayed with them for 26 years before he retired. So he knows that kind of traditional, get a job, work hard, marginally more every single year. And in 10 years, you can buy a house. And in 20 years, you can do this. And in 30 years, you can retire. Well, that wasn't available to me. So I called up a guy that I used to work with at the fire department. I was a firefighter also in another life. And I called up that guy. I was like, hey, Rick, can I work for you and mow lawns? He had a landscaping company. So he gave me a truck, he gave me a trailer, he gave me all the equipment, and I'd run up there in the morning and I'd go mow lawns. And part of it was Zen. Part of it was like kind of the wonder of just like being in nature and just like making beautifully straight lines on the back of a lawnmower. So I didn't dislike it, but I was making, I forget, $10 an hour, $12 an hour. It just wasn't enough to sustain my lifestyle. And obviously it's nowhere for me to grow. So I did what, I thought was best to do, which was go to the library, go online, find all of the different kind of tapes and programs that I can to just get my head right. I kind of got into this like get your head right idea. There's like the whole dating industry, which was kind of big in 2008, kind of like the pickup artistry stuff, right? So I like read some of those books, and one thing that really stood out to me, outside of like you could be like a slimy bastard and like follow all that stuff verbatim, but like what I really liked about it was this idea of like your inner game, like something's going on inside your mind, how you approach the world, how you see the world, what are your limiting beliefs. And man, I would go through Tony Robbins tapes. I went through Personal Power 2, listen to Awaken the Giant Within. Just really got into kind of the personal development kind of on my own on the back of these lawnmowers every single day, just, driving my tractors around, mowing lawns with my leaf blowers on my back, making straight lines and clean edges. And one day I was at this guy's house. His name's Dave. He was just north of my hometown, Suttons Bay, Michigan. And I was mowing his lawn for like the third time. And I was just really taken aback by his place. Beautiful home, situated on the bay. He had a great car. The guy just kind of had it. Like I just kind of like looked at him. I was like, damn, man, like you got it, right? Like this is the life. And thinking about it now, like it was maybe like $1 million home on the bay. It wasn't something that was grandiose, but for me, it was a big deal. And so I finally got the nerve to ask him one day. I was like, "Excuse me, Dave, how'd you do it? How did you become successful? How did you get this?" And he says, "Well, Casey, I invented a product and I sold it, and then I created a distribution network, and they sold it for me, and they continue to do that." It's like, "Well, what's the product?" And he talked to me about it and showed it to me. And it was this fuel conditioner, which later I think I kind of believe it to be, I don't know, fake snake oil, right? And like it wasn't anything really worthwhile. But I was like, "Hey, man, can I sell it?" I didn't know better. He goes, "Yeah, sure. You could be one of my distributors." But he said, like, "I won't cut you a deal. You got to like buy it at wholesale cost." I was like, "Can you front me? I don't have the cash." He's like, "No, you got to get the cash." So I worked extra shifts. I got the cash. I bought a bunch of units. And then I took those units door to door and sold them. And I made more money in one afternoon than I'd made the week previous mowing lawns. And I knew I was onto something. But again, it's 2008. It's the summer of 2008. And gas prices are through the roof. This is back when everyone was like super worried about $3.50 gas. And
let me jump in real quick. So you're doing door-to-door selling fuel conditioner?
Yeah, dude. Like magnets. It's like magnets on like a little piece of metal that like hugs a fuel intake line. And the idea is that the magnets pull apart the fuel that's like bunched together kind of as it comes in to make it more efficient when it burns.
Got it.
Like probably garbage, right?
Yeah. All right, please
continue.
Garbage.
Okay. So like where I'm from, small town, there's not a lot of houses. There's, my graduating class in high school was 100 people. And that's the biggest ever. The school has never had a class that big. I was at the peak of it when we graduated. Right now it's probably like 35 people will graduate their senior year this year. So small town, and just going door to door, also like the income in the community, it just wasn't there. And also I was just kind of feeling lazy. So I said, I want to do this. I want to sell this, but I don't want to sell it door to door. How do I multiply it? And then I was listening to Dan Kennedy, who I got into in marketing, if anyone follows Dan Kennedy, and just hearing about marketing and how marketing works. And then I got his Ultimate Sales Letter book. And I was just like, there's something to this. So I bought a domain. It was savemoneyonhomeheating.com, one of the shortest domains I ever purchased. And wrote a sales letter and then tried to drive PPC traffic to it, thinking that was the thing. And ultimately I did, marginally okay. But what I did was I learned. And that was the start of it all. It was betting on me trying to be able to figure it out. Things, one thing led to another. And I'd met a guy who sold information products online. And he said to me one day, he called me and he was just like, "Hey, Casey," I remember this. He calls me while I'm driving downstate to see my girlfriend. And he goes, "Hey, Casey, I've got a money-making proposition for you. Are you interested?" I was like, "What you got, David?" He's like, "I'd like to hire you to be my Google AdWords guy, run my ads, $1,000 a month." It's changed my life. So when I accepted, his copywriter sent me over Perry Marshall's Definitive Guide to Google AdWords in a 3-ring binder. It might have been like the first edition of it. I don't know. It was like one of the original editions. And that's where I got started. And I muscled my way through those ads and supported him on that as my first client at $1,000 a month. And, I quickly found the efficiency in using a tool called Winner Alert. WinnerAlert.com did split test kind of analytics for you. You run a couple different ads inside of an ad set or an ad group, and then it optimizes and tells you which one's the right one. And then you go in and pause all the bad performers and keep the good performers. And that software was $20 a month. And what I found I was able to do was one day a month, write all my ad creatives, post them, and then over the course of the month, just check in on that software once a week. And I was spending a couple minutes a week on it, and then a weekly call with the client. And I was feeling this kind of like sense of leverage that was really exciting. $1,000 a month, not a ton of money, but it certainly wasn't bad as a supplement to what I was doing. And moreover, it was showing me how to sell information products. We were selling binders with paper in it that was 3-hole punched, and we were selling it for $800 a piece. Like there's something really special about that. Also when I was younger, I performed magic. I was a magician, and I've done a couple hundred shows, and magic is the same way. You can go buy a magic book, like a book on how to do a coin routine. And that book might cost you $70, $80, but it's the same paper that you could go buy a copy of the Bible in, right? But the Bible's $1, but this magic book is $70. What's the difference between the two? And it's the scarcity of the information and the value of the information. So that was like another kind of major turning point for me to kind of get my head on right about being able to sell things for more than its kind of constituent parts. The perceived value being more than the actual tangible value of like the paper, the binder, the metal 3 rings. So that was really exciting. My girlfriend at the time and she and I made plans to, after she graduated, she was a year behind me. So that next year, she and I set sail on an epic trip. We flew to Madrid. We took a train down to Alicante, Spain, and then we had our bicycles with us, fully loaded, and we rode to Rome. We took 4 months to ride all the way to Rome, and the whole time I was kind of, working while doing it. I was a digital nomad in 2009, and there were some turning points there, like picking up Tim Ferriss's book 4-Hour Workweek and kind of feeling the confirmation of what I was doing. I was kind of onto something. Picking up Keith Fazari's book Never Eat Alone. Actually, I remember that I was in a cafe in Spain, and I was reading that on my Kindle. And he said one of his life-changing events was to do a 10-day meditation retreat. So I look it up, and there's an SN Goenka 10-day meditation retreat in the foothills of Italy, just a little off our path. And we booked it, and we kind of changed our route to make sure that we were able to go there. We took our trip by bicycle and ended up going there and did a 10-day meditation retreat, kind of life-changing in a lot of like introspective, personal ways. And then ultimately, made our way to Rome and flew back. Once we got back, the question was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to kind of approach work and life and everything? So that girlfriend and I, we broke up kind of in my mind somewhere in France, which is about halfway through the trip, which is kind of rough for her, but made sense to me. I'll just tell you this. If you're riding bikes with someone long-term and that person is 1 mile an hour slower than you, and you bike for 5 hours a day, they're going to be 5 miles behind you by the end of it. And it's annoying to wait, so get a tandem. That's the secret.
Yeah.
I started my collection of tandems. I'm on my 5th tandem bicycle at this point.
Well, I tried that. Didn't work out. I think that led to the demise of another relationship.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah, sometimes people can't hang on a tandem. So I moved back to Michigan, and I moved into my sister's basement. Can't afford much. Actually came back with more money than I left with because I was making money and I was living pretty frugally, but only by like $1,000 or $2,000. And I'm living in my sister's basement, not in her apartment in the basement. She's like at University of Michigan. She's kind of got one of these houses that has apartments for different students in it. They're all like public health majors. They're all getting their master's in public health or social work. And I didn't get like the basement apartment. That was another guy. I got the furnace and a curtain. There's like the wall, the furnace, and a curtain. And I literally mean when the furnace would turn on, my whole room would glow orange. So I lived there for a little while, and it's kind of oppressive living in your sister's basement, kind of being like the cellar dweller.
You've made it.
I made it in life. Yeah, that was definitely the point. So I decided that I needed to do more of what I was doing, and Ann Arbor was a great spot. I actually found the Dan Kennedy, Bill Glazer Insider Circle. So GKIC, there's a chapter in Ann Arbor, and I locked in on that and couldn't afford it. So Derek, who ran it, was super kind and supportive for me. He was one of these guys who had a library of all the greats in marketing's material. And he said to me, Casey, if you do the busy work here for me, I'll let you in for free. So I labeled CDs, I burned CDs for him, I swept the floors, I did catering runs, kind of like whatever he needed. I got there early to prep, I took everything down, and I got to be the guy who was there. I was in the room with these business owners that were doing real money. To me, real money, $1 million a year. It was really exciting. And Derek let me just kind of hang out in his office a little bit. And I'd sit down and after I'd be done cleaning, and I'd open up John Carlton's kick-ass guide to copywriting, right? And I'd get to learn it and kind of soak that in. And I certainly couldn't have afforded that myself, so having that opportunity was huge. I also got to ride along to a couple of Dan's events, so to like a super conference and an info summit. I did both of those in the Ohio, Indiana area. And I went with other people. I slept on the floor, in their rooms. I was just kind of like the tag along guy. And that's where it all started for me. As one thing leads to another, I met a guy in a bar in Ann Arbor on a date that went south. We were at the 8 Ball. This girl and I just it just wasn't making sense. So I went and got a pitcher of beer for myself and bumped into another guy who had a pitcher of beer. And he and I got talking, and he knew some people that I knew of. I knew of them. I kind of looked up to them, like Eben Pagan, Dan Kennedy, Frank Kern. So some of those kind of traditional names in direct response marketing, online marketing. And he had actually worked with them. So I was like, oh, shoot, I found a very interesting guy. Well, he was heading out to Burning Man. I decided to go to Burning Man. I decided to bring water for him so that he had to come see me every single day to get his ration of water. And Mike and I got to be friends. He offered me a job with his agency. And then for the next 8 years, I worked in this agency. I contracted for this agency. And I went from lowly marketer to lead marketer to account manager to salesman to CMO, almost to CEO of the company. But we ultimately decided that wasn't the right fit for me. So I got to kind of run the whole gamut in that agency. And I had just a blast doing it. I got to be in a bunch of projects working on New York Times bestselling book launches. We raised $1.5 million on a Kickstarter. Jordan Belfort, The Wolf of Wall Street, when his movie came out and Scorsese, directed it, Belfort couldn't make money on his story because he's a criminal. And there's a law in the United States that says that if you're a felon, you can't make money selling your story of your felony. So Jordan wanted to obviously make money on the fact that his story was going on the big screen. So how did he do that? Well, we put together his straight line persuasion system and we sold those courses. So jordanbelfort.com became kind of the epicenter for splitting traffic. We had a little survey funnel that says, are you here because you think Jordan Belfort's a badass and you're kind of a fanboy or fangirl? Do you want to learn his straight line persuasion system, or do you just like Leonardo DiCaprio? And based on their answer, they got a certain follow-up. Yeah. And we sold obviously the straight line persuasion system to a lot of folks and did quite well. So that's where that all started. And kind of as that progresses, I found myself in more of a leadership role, and I started doing more consulting inside of this agency. And the consulting was a ton of fun. I would go and prospect, I'd propose, I'd close, and I'd ultimately service these clients all myself. And I just loved it. But I wasn't taking the whole pie home. I was giving a lot of it back to the agency, which made sense. They created the opportunity for me. So over time, it just made sense for me to kind of branch out and leave the agency. So I did that, and I started doing this consulting stuff more full time. But consulting, what I realized is no one wants a consultant, one, because it's pejorative. It's a 4-letter word. No one wants to hire a consultant. And second, no one wants to be a consultant if they think about it, because consultants have short-lived opportunities. You live in this revolving door of prospect, propose, close, service, spin down every single day, every single week. It seems like you're doing all those things at once.
Eat what you kill, eat what you kill, eat what you kill.
Man, right. Eat what you kill. Yeah. So I think of this. Dan Kennedy's got this line. He says, there's people that are on stage and they're pirates. They go and they get as much treasure as they can. They come back and they split it up among people. It's like the traditional way to do business. Mm-hmm. And Dan said something that kind of forever changed me. And he said, be a farmer. Go on stage, go wherever you're going, build the relationships, create multiple revenue streams, have them persist a long time. That's obviously what you want. You want to farm. You want to reap what you sow instead of just kind of like taking the booty and splitting it up with the other pirates. So I took that idea to heart, and I took this kind of marketing consulting I was doing, and I wanted to figure out how to extend my retainer, and then beyond that, serve kind of in the top role of marketing. And I sat down and said to myself, okay, I want to be the best marketer for the companies that I work with. And I want to ascend to the top role in marketing, and I want to make as much as possible. Am I a CEO? Like maybe I can grow into that, but I think I can be a CMO, and I think I can be a really great CMO. So I started taking on clients as their CMO. And I didn't know it at the time, but the term for that is called fractional CMO. And I became a fractional CMO for a couple clients. My first client paying me $7,500 a month. And I was working for him, 10-ish hours a week. And I thought I just struck gold. And in honesty, I did. I was working much less than I did at the agency, and I was getting pretty close to the same rates. So then my job was to add more clients like that. So instead of working 40 hours a week to make that, let's say $100,000 a year, I was working 10 hours a week. So then I brought in another client, and instantly I doubled my income at half the time. I felt like a badass. But if anyone here's ever done that kind of work before, you know just how like chaotic it can be to go from one client that's selling, let's say, direct to consumer to another one that's a B2B SaaS. Radically different, very tough to kind of make that context switch. So maybe I'm only working 10 hours a week for each client, but I'm sweating every single day, worried about what I'm going to do, worried about how I'm going to push it forward, worried about like, how do I make sure that I'm giving value to the client? I never want to have a conversation where I'm not being valuable. So I spent a lot of time building a process, and I call it the functional marketing framework. And that's the process that I then took to more clients, and I grew that book of business to $25,000. It was about $23,000 a month. And I did that a couple years ago, $23,000 a month, working 25 hours a week, 30 hours a week with an assistant, and things were good. I was happy with myself, bringing in a good income, and kind of pleased with that. And then literally overnight, I lost 20,000 of that.
God,
just gone. And what that was I had flown out to California, and I met in Beverly Hills with the chairman of the board of a company and the CEO. And I kind of made my pitch for the next year. And they said, Casey, we're in. This was in like early January. And they said, we're in, we're committed, we're in for the year. I get a handshake. I get the whole like, handshake with a slap on the shoulder that says like, good job. That was really solid. And they're like in it, right? So thrilled. I come home, I'm on cloud nine. And then I get a call. Halfway through the month of January when the contract was just set to renew. And the CEO's like, hey man, I got some bad news. We're not renewing. I was like, what do you mean you're not renewing? And he says, I got fired. And the board is clearing the whole C-suite. So it wasn't necessarily me, although I was, I guess, part of maybe the problem, but everyone got canned. So overnight, everyone lost it.
And this was the 23K you were pulling in per month.
Yeah, that was like half of that, and then the other half was for a client that kind of reached the end of its life cycle.
Got it. Okay. I thought it was like, there's some allegations in your past that arose, or there's some cancel culture erupted, but this is a better side of the story.
I mean, kind of. It kind of sucked. My wife and I were like, I mean, there's a whole kind of additional backstory in there, which maybe I'll touch on in a moment. But so I'm like in this like compromised position. My wife and I had just moved to the city, and we're like, shit. Like I'm like, I got to figure this out. In the 3 years previous, we had left New Orleans, where I had been living after this whole grand trip to Europe. I finally moved to New Orleans. I lived there for, 6-7 years. Loved New Orleans. Was a professor at Tulane University. Loved that, but decided that wasn't for me. So I took a leave of absence, and then ultimately just like left Tulane. My wife and I sold everything. We got a SUV. We got a Dodge Durango, and then we bought a RV, and we drove around the country for 3 years.
Wow.
And we city dated from as northeast as Portland, Maine, southwest as far as Austin, Texas, just kind of like that triangle of the United States. And we dated the cities, tried to find where we wanted to live, got married along the way in Nashville, had a huge blowout wedding, just a wonderful wedding, just had a great time. And then all along the way, a little bit of this backstory is all along the way, I created these guardrails in my life. And I said, it's inconvenient to be driving in this RV so much. If anyone here's ever pulled an RV, just like how kind of harrowing it can be. Driving an RV down the highway, light wind gusts can blow the whole trailer into the other lane. You can kill people with it.
Oh, terrifying.
You can jackknife. You can have blowouts. You can drive into a gas station that has too sharp of an egress, and you can just like rip off your black tank, and your sewage is all over. Like it's scary, right? And then you're also thinking, oh, but it's easy because you'll just go to all these beautiful places in the South in the winter. The problem is everyone else has thought of that, and they have had their reservations for like the last year. So you're getting relegated to like you could call it like D-class RV parks, and not the beautiful RV parks that you want to be in. So that's a whole story. But I created this kind of guardrail in my life that was, I want to be successful. I want to make a lot of money. I want to make a big impact. But I'm going to drive this RV around. Well, that's an interesting guardrail to create. And I knew that guardrail would persist because I wanted to have kids and I wanted to be a present dad. My dad did a great job raising us. And he was gone a lot because he worked a full-time job out of the house plus travel through Detroit's traffic. And I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that for my kids. I just wanted to spend more time. I just kind of wanted to like live with my family instead of just like see them here and there in the mornings for a little bit. So I said the guardrail, kind of the constraints I'm putting on my business, which is I have to be able to run it from a RV park, from the KOA campground rec room with really terrible dial-up internet. I have to be able to run the business. I have to be able to run it on my phone almost exclusively because I don't know if I'm even going to be able to find a place to plug in my laptop. I'll tell you the secret for that is McDonald's. Most McDonald's have really great internet, and you can just like go hang out there all day and no one really cares.
Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Or just like sit in the parking lot and get on conference calls.
Absolutely. Big Mac and a Zoom.
Totally, man. That big gulp. Yeah, it's a good time. So when we ultimately moved, I set the business up. I felt really good about myself with all these guardrails and everything, pulling in about $23,000 a month. And then everything kind of fell out. We had just moved to the city. We didn't know where we were going to live. And, we just spent a lot of money on our wedding. So we're in this position of like, where we were feeling really confident, and then kind of overnight, and really it was over the span of maybe 10 days or so, I lost those 2 clients. But it felt like overnight because we had just moved to the city. We had a 30-day short-term rental, and we were going to go scout to find a place to live. And I lost all of our ability to find that place to live. And I was so scared. We ran out of money. So you asked me, like, what's a challenge? Well, the challenge is just getting absolutely clobbered in 10 days and losing all income. And I pay my US-based full-time employee assistant a little bit more than $3,000 a month. So I was
good for you. I like that. Good for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You got to do the health insurance. You got to do the 401k match, 4% a year increase. Like, I mean, you got to treat people with respect, right?
Yeah, that's class.
Yeah. So I'm like screwed. So I tell him, I'm like, shit, man. Like, I'm going to get out of this, but I don't know how yet, and I don't know how long it'll take. And I want your support, and I can't afford it. So let me help you find other work. And we talked about it. And while I'm helping him, and while my wife's like figuring out, like what's the cheapest lean cuisine option for us to have for dinner? Like literally, I mean, we're shopping and having $1.50 meals because that's like all we can afford because we're like right on that razor's edge. The rest of the time, I was just prospecting. I literally opened up my laptop the day that I lost that second client. I opened up my laptop and said, I got to make some money. And I kid you not, within an hour, I had a $7,500 proposal signed.
How'd you do that?
It's just a pipeline, just maintaining a pipeline. It wasn't a big pipeline. It was someone that I had been in communication with, and I offered them kind of a lower price deal to start right now.
So this was already in the works. You didn't find that.
I didn't just find it. Right. Yep.
Right, cool.
But it was something that might not have closed. So I said, let's guarantee the close by dropping the price down from 10,000 to 7,500. And let's just do it.
Yeah.
And that allowed us to ultimately move and get a place to stay, super, super scary to go through that experience. But I set myself on a course, which was, I had let go of the control in business. I had said to myself, hey man, I'm good at 23, whatever. Like I'm going to take home, 150,000. I felt pretty good about myself. I felt like I kind of got to a place to kind of chill out. And I let my pipeline go. I let my pipeline dry up. I was okay with word of mouth and referral. And I quickly realized what probably everyone here has realized at some point, that you just can't bet on word of mouth and referral. You can't scale that When you need business, you can't say like, hey, can you pay me? Like that just doesn't work. So I was forced to really take business seriously. And over the next year, I built a badass pipeline and I brought that business back up. That same 2-man team, still working about 30 hours a week. I brought that business back up to $46,500 a month. So I doubled my previous high and I had a thick pipeline to keep me supported. So that's a 2-man team doing this work. And I was able to drop down my kind of anxiety around what am I doing? Because I had that functional marketing framework. I got to drop down my anxiety of like, oh shit, what if I lose this client? What does that mean for, my lifestyle? Because I had a pipeline that was full. And I just got myself into a position of strength. And I bet on myself. And I think that it made all the difference. I have a pocket knife. It's downstairs. But I love these Benchmade knives. I have some other ones.
Oh, those are great.
Right.
Yeah, with a little
You're a
butterfly.
Benchmade guy.
Yeah.
So this knife I actually bought on my first date with my wife when she stood me up. It's a joke. So we keep this one around.
So I want to circle back to there. So you walk me through how you created this just one more time, because I want to go ahead and just start picking this apart.
Yeah, and let me just land on this knife thing. So on my other knife downstairs, it says the word inevitable. I got it laser etched in there, and I carried that with me every single day because it was inevitable that I was going to figure this out. That was the commitment. I got that idea from Eben Pagan. Mm-hmm. He calls it inevitability thinking. So it's inevitable that I will be successful. I might not make all the money tomorrow, but by the end of this, I will have done it. It's inevitable. If I keep working at it, I keep learning, I keep pivoting, it's going to be inevitable. And I think that mentality was so important because I had no one to bet on. My wife and I moved to a new city without any family nearby, no friends nearby, starting fresh, kind of leaving our family of origin so that we could create a life that we chose, not a life that was kind of prescribed to us. And it was tough to bet on myself that much, but that is what made the difference. So back to your question, how did I fill the pipeline? Is that the question?
Yeah, like how do you fill the pipeline? Yeah, and I want to go ahead and pull it from there.
Yeah, I mean, simply the first thing that I had to do was I had to niche, understand my offer, and then put in the reps. I just wasn't putting in the reps before because that first gig I got at $7,500 a month when I left that agency, I did it just before I left the agency. Then I had the confidence that I could leave the agency. I was just responsive to any deal that came to me. Mm-hmm. Someone came to me, I was like, yeah, I can help you. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of other marketers and agency owners that have done that. They're like, absolutely, we can help you. Mm-hmm. Oh, you need an app developed? Yeah, sure. I can go on Upwork and I can find an app developer. Yeah, absolutely, we can help you. I'll get you a proposal in a week.
Oh, dude,
right?
So risky.
Right, so risky. All just to make like this potential of like income, but it's all with chaos and hard work, and you're not the best at it. So it's like the simplicity of understanding what my offer was, who I wanted to serve, who I didn't want to serve, putting in rules around the client types. I worked with a company.
Super clear on like your conditions of satisfaction and your ideal customer profile.
Yep, exactly. And a willingness not to have the money in order to have the joy. I never wanted to go to work in the morning and not like it. I don't think of it as work. I mean, sometimes it's work, but like often it's just really fun. Working with companies that you love and people that you love. And there's some hacks that I learned along the way. This isn't a truism across the board. But working with there's the religious folks that are kind of fake, but then there's the religious folks that are like really like wonderful and like giving is a number one priority in their life. And like those kind of people, that's a hack, man. Right. If you can work with those kind of people, you're probably going to have a good time.
Oh, that's a good call.
Right. If you work with people who are respectful, who say thank you, you're probably going to have a good time. If you get on any call in the first month with a client and there's any blame going around, you're probably going to have a bad time. Mm-hmm. If the CEO points fingers and yells at people, they don't take responsibility for negative outcomes, that CEO is probably a bad person to work for. So, I set that litmus and I got tested a lot. I definitely have worked with people that I didn't love. And ultimately, I had to get my way out of it. So I had to have a pipeline so that I had the ability to do replacement therapy.
And what were you selling exactly?
Fractional CMO services.
So this was the fractional CMO part. So this is you going in, and then you start building your network, and then you start pulling people in that you're getting a cut of whatever it is that they're selling.
Well, kind of. So what's happened is that this fractional CMO stuff worked really well. COVID has kind of forever changed the hiring landscape, as I'm sure everyone here is like experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Hiring remote teams is more frequent than ever before. Companies that didn't really consider online marketing are realizing like, oh shit, like no one's coming into our brick and mortar. We have to sell online. It's really important for us to be online. This whole internet thing might be something. So they're needing marketing, and maybe it's their nephew who's been running their social media accounts before, and they like need to be serious about it.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that natural rise. So as that was happening, COVID came. I actually found COVID to be incredible for business. And we got to a point where I was maxed out on work with all the clients that I loved, not maxed out on work with clients that maybe I could get rid of. I mean, like, love these people, just really appreciate them, love spending time with them, get on calls with them. You know, we joke and we get to business and we make huge outcomes. It's really exciting. So with those companies, everything was great. And then I had, it was really a year ago. I had, it was like Christmas in 2020. I had two companies that had $10,000 a month checks that they wanted to give to me, and I turned them both down.
Wow.
And I just felt like that was a place of like, I was really excited for myself. Like, I got to choose that I didn't want to work with these people. And one guy I didn't want to work with because he wanted me to track every one of my hours down to the 15-minute. I just didn't want to do it. I just didn't want to run time logs because I personally hate that. I hate time logs.
Mm-hmm.
I get it why he wants it. I appreciate it, and I wish him all the best. I'm just not his guy.
Yeah, he's a micromanager and he doesn't trust people. That's exactly why he wants it.
That was the vibe I got, right? So long story short, I decided it wasn't right for me to work with those companies. And at the same time, I'm seeing a huge demand of marketers who want to be fractional CMOs. They're like, hey, can I work for you? And I had tried that previously a few years ago, having other people work for me and take on clients. I just didn't like it because I had to hold all the responsibility, and they were entrepreneurial. And then they, over time, kind of felt the burn of like, why does Casey get something when it's my business and I'm doing all the work? So with that, I decided to take all the processes that I'd created. So I have this assistant, Raphael, and every time I did a project or solved a problem a second time, he would create a worksheet or a process around it. And we amassed over 100 SOPs. So how to do a webinar, how to do the webinar positioning, the title, the slides, the promotion, and the one-pager for the host and the guests. Those are 5 individual documents that we created, and we just used them every single time. And what I found was when I worked with clients, I was able to kind of rebrand that document and clean it up and give it to them. And it was a huge win for them, and it was very little time for me. So I got this kind of multiplicity leverage. And that was really exciting. So we were building those up just to make my life easier. And then this kind of confluence of demand for me and then demand to join us. And what we decided to do was kind of go back to my roots as a trainer, as a teacher. I was a professor at Tulane, and I taught marketing, and I really love it. So I continue to maintain relationships with clients as their fractional CMO. I lead a private equity real estate sponsor, and we'll hit $1 billion in assets here in the next 2 months. I mean, the company is incredible. Wow. It's a dream of a company to work with. Great team, wonderful people, hardworking. I just can't say enough good things about them.
It's one of your clients.
It's one of my clients. Yep.
Yeah.
So I still continue to stay in and stay sharp, but then also I have all of these great resources and I love it. So I've grown my team, and now we train marketers and agencies on how to add fractional CMO services. And what's unique about this is an agency often solves a problem by like, let's just be kind of basic. They run PPC ads or they build websites or something else, right? They have a tactic, and they're probably known for 1 or 2 or 3 of them. Maybe it's a multidisciplinary agency and you guys can do everything. But generally speaking, you kind of have your blocking and tackling kind of packages that you sell. Oftentimes, agencies have to give away strategy for free in order to understand the problem enough to be able to prescribe the solution. So the salesperson is compensated on the sale, but then you bring a marketer in and they kind of have to do like all the strategy to kind of figure out what the problem is. And everyone listening to this should know, like, you're not actually solving the full problem. You might solve the most pressing problem. It might be the most kind of obvious thing, but it's not systemic. You're not solving the problem of the communication between sales and marketing, or marketing and finance, or marketing and product. You're not encouraging the client to actually build multiple products so they can have ascension. If they're selling a one-off product, you're not really influencing them necessarily maybe to create a recurring revenue product. If you got to be the fractional CMO, or someone in your agency was the fractional CMO for that client, you'd have an inside man or an inside woman, an inside person that would be figuring out the right solution for the client and then bringing business over to your agency. Not because they feel indebted to, but because you're the right agency for it. And it puts you in this position of strength in that you're solving all of the problems that the client has. You've got this inside person. You created an additional revenue stream. And it's just different. It's different than being a mercenary that gets called to do something. You're the fractional CMO is building the team out. They're hiring, they're firing, they're pulling in vendors. They're getting an offshore person. They're grabbing someone that's over in this department, pulling them into this department, and they're training them. It's a really exciting thing to do to really build long-lasting companies. And as any agency owner knows that's listening, you know the benefit of your team, let's say, running ads. You don't want to get some kid fresh out of college to run ads for you. You want your team to run it. You're better at it. You have better optimization from creative to audience to scheduling to comment moderation to landing page UTMs, all that stuff. You got that, but you need someone else to tell you what the campaign is. You should be compensated to come up with a Black Friday campaign instead of saying, oh shoot, we should run something, let's come up with some ads. You should be compensated to think it through holistically, kind of in totality. So that's what the Fractional CMO does. And it's just been a joy. We launched last year the CMOX Accelerator, and we've got folks who are agency owners that have hundreds of clients, and they just want to get deeper with some clients. One guy's really creative, and he's trying to cleave his way into big companies, starting with franchisees, small franchisees, win them, and then get into the franchisor. That's going to be a huge upside for his business, for his agency, when he's able to do that. We've got other people who are really great marketers, skilled marketers, but they've kind of been doing marketing for other people, and they're wanting to kind of own the business themselves. So they're hanging the shingle as a fractional CMO. There's a guy that I just interviewed for my podcast yesterday who's been a consultant for 10 years. Great guy, incredible processes, very original in his thinking. But his problem is he's a consultant, and consulting lasts for 3 months at the most. A fractional CMO gig lasts years. So it's the benefit of the CMO as far as longevity, but it's kind of the hourly rate of the marketing consultant. So you get all the greatness about the marketing consultant. You get the time flexibility. You just have to deliver a result, right? But then you get the long-term contracts of the CMO. It's really a win-win across the board. And it's been awesome to see that happen. Yeah.
And just curious, have you ever run into a situation where a company has a fractional CFO, fractional CMO, fractional, if they fractionalized everything they can?
Yeah, there's definitely a move to that. So I think our brethren, the fractional CFOs, definitely led the charge. I would say that they were preceded by the outside general counsel. 30 years ago, people had full-time lawyers.
Right.
But now you have a lawyer that you call every time you need a contract review, which is twice a month, right? So that's kind of the first. You have a fractional lawyer that works for you. But yeah, fractional CFOs. I've got a friend who's got a fractional CFO firm. It's called Foresight CFO. And Kurt's model is really great, typically U.S. Fractional CFOs, and then offshore bookkeepers. Because bookkeeping is like analytics. It's just anyone can do it. It doesn't matter what your native language is.
Right. Just numbers.
It's just numbers. But you want to pay for the brain. So I think of it like most marketing departments in an organization have hardworking people that want to do the right job. They show up every day and say, boss, what can I do? If that boss doesn't know what to do, you're just going to waste everyone's time. So they're going to run in all these different directions. Having a CMO to lead the charge makes a lot of sense, but you don't need to pay for a full-time CMO. You need a CMO 10 hours a week.
What does a fractional CMO make?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we've got fractional CMOs that are adding in additional clients on top of working at other companies. They might be a VP marketing somewhere and they're thinking about retiring and they want to be relevant still. So they want to add a little bit. We've got other folks that are agency owners. And then we've got other people that are copywriters who are kind of done writing words for a living. And they just really want to just, here's our solve bigger problems. See if that comes in. There you go. Solve bigger problems. That's what we say, right? The goal is you want to elevate to solve bigger problems, because solving bigger problems means that you make bigger impact and you get a bigger paycheck. Yeah. And so the question is, what do they make? It depends on the clients that they sell and at what level. But I say the minimum they should sell is $3,000 a month, which is about 3-4 hours of work a month. So you've got about a $750 an hour effective hourly rate. And then on the other side, let's say $15,000 a month. So $3,000 to $15,000 a month. And as you do more work and you charge a higher rate, you're putting in more hours, but you're still working 10-ish hours. So it's a couple hours a month to 2 days a week.
And are you selling them? Do you recommend that they sell them by the hour, or is it like value-based pricing?
It's all value-based pricing. But like the reason I bring this up is, there is a limit to how many clients you can take as a fractional CMO. I think of like Dunbar's number, which is the idea of like how many relationships we can keep in our mind. And, there's like 150 people in your life that if you bumped into them at a bar, you could like sit for 10 minutes and have like a reasonably kind of intimate conversation. Right.
Isn't it amazing though, just real quick, when you meet the people that are like off the scales and they can like have 10,000.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not one of those, but I know one of those. And it's just insane to watch that guy where it's just like, 25 years ago. Yeah. That's
totally. Yeah, I remember you. You were wearing that shirt, man.
Yeah, dude. It's amazing. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah. So I think for the fractional CMO, you work with probably at your peak 5-6 clients. That's where you want to be, because you want to be in deep enough. And there's a lot of moving pieces. And the bigger the client is, the more responsibility it is, the bigger your budgets are. If you're the kind of marketer who's enjoyed spending $5,000 a month on a budget or $10,000 a month on a budget, what could you do if you were given 50 grand in a month or 100 grand a month or 300 grand in a month? Because there are companies that need that, need a CMO there, but they just don't need a full-time CMO. They know that they're close to something. They've gotten this far, obviously, without you, but they need some more. They need some more leadership. And maybe the fractional CMO for them is a stepping stone to a full-time CMO. Maybe. But for a lot of companies, they want that fractional CMO because they're like, oh man, for this amount of money, I can have a CMO and I get that coverage and I get that that safety and security. It feels really, really good to them. And it's an easy line item to get approved every single month. Contract terms persist for a long time. And you're just able to make incredible impact. And I think that's what's so exciting about it is the quality of the impact and then being compensated fairly for your impact.
Yeah, no, I think that's strong. And I guess it's something that's just continually changing, right? You even mentioned it when you were talking about Ferriss's book, right? The 4-hour work week. Everybody's trying to figure out this amazing model. And the irony about that book is that guy doesn't work 4 hours a week, man. He's like, he even said on his podcast, it's like 60, 80 hours a week.
You're right.
But you also mentioned this is for agencies. Are agencies then selling themselves as fractional CMOs?
Yeah, it's dependent. So there's a couple opportunities there for the agency. Sometimes the agencies are just like successful, and the agency owner's like, man, I kind of miss it. I kind of miss getting in and getting dirty and gritty and like building. You build the agency, you hit your level of success, you're satisfied with it, but like you're just kind of getting bored. So we've got some of those kind of folks inside of our accelerator, and they're just kind of getting dirty and they're in and they're growing other companies and they're having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah.
But then there's also agencies that take their lead marketer who's maybe considering leaving and supporting them by having them become the fractional CMO.
Right.
So now they're going to go and create this additional revenue and have more kind of control. And instead of losing that person that they would naturally lose because the person's like, I'm out, man, I got to go do my own thing. They've created a way for them to do their own thing, kind of. But the agency gets all the benefit from it.
Yeah.
And the agency can also provide some of the pipeline and support them. And then also there's just agencies that want to add fractional CMO services. So they train up one of their marketers in-house who doesn't want to be entrepreneurial, but just wants to solve bigger problems and have kind of the safety of the agency around them to support them, with employment, health benefits, all that kind of stuff. And that person comes in, we train them, and then they're out there winning business and then serving those companies.
Got it. So, and this is education based, right? You have a program. So, like you said, you're not managing these people. You're just
No.
giving them all the tools so they can then go and do exactly what it is that you did, right?
Yeah, we do some fun stuff. So we just had a quarterly planning event, and I have a baby, and he likes to move stuff around.
Oh,
All right, so here it is. So this is our latest workbook. It's our latest workbook for the accelerator, and we went through annual planning. So all of our members went live with me. We did a workshop, and they annual planned their biggest client live with me on the call. So we mailed them all workbooks. We blocked a few hours off, and we did that. Walk them through in explicit detail. They came with a little bit of data prepped, and we walked through how to create their whole annual plan for their biggest client. Everyone has a different client in a different space, a different industry, at a different growth phase. And we were all able to leave that training with their annual plan 80% done.
Wow.
And the last 20% of it, they meet with the client, and they kind of propose it to the client, and they say it's 80% done so that the client can influence it and feel like they baked the cake with them.
Yep.
But generally speaking, the CMO kind of has done everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. A little bit of buy-in. I like that. Now, this spurs two questions. I definitely want to jump back to that challenge of 10 days. But before that, how long did it take you to put together your material for this? You said you've been doing this for a year.
Yeah, it's been a year that we've been really live on it.
Okay.
And honestly, we're just getting started, man. We are just getting started. What's so exciting is being able to see all of these other really effective, successful fractional CMOs that we've trained who've come in and in 21 days, I got a guy who brought in a $10,000 a month client. And then a week and a half later, brought in another $10,000 a month client. And he's got the fattest pipeline. Yeah. So we've got these people who were selling before $2,000 a month services jump up 5X. Yeah. And seeing what's working for them and their clients, and kind of taking these ideas, because I've been in a lot of businesses, but now I'm in even more businesses kind of through this army of fractional CMOs. How do we create a system and a process around this? Mm-hmm. And we're just continuing to build content. In 2 weeks from this date, we're doing another another annual plan. Let me just share this. So we do two types of planning calls. We do a planning call for your clients, meaning you come on live on the calls, and I walk you through and you workshop your own clients' issues. And I kind of give you processes for it. And when you get stuck, you come off mute, ask questions, and I help you overcome your specific problem. So that's really fun to help your client. But then also you got to take care of yourself. So we do another planning call every quarter for your business. How do you grow your business? Where are you at financially right now? What's your pipeline look like? Where are you the weakest? Attracting, closing, or delivering? Right. And then you commit for a quarter, and then we provide all the trainings and worksheets and videos to kind of level you up. So we have this grid of what you must have kind of mastered before you can reach 10,000 a month, 20,000 a month, 30,000 a month, and then 41,600 a month, which is the $500,000 a year run rate, which is where, we're really excited to help people get to. So it's these clear steps along the way.
Got it. So you keep saying pipeline. How do you recommend that your CMOs and whatnot build their pipeline for this?
Yeah, there's a couple ways for it. So there's a distinction that should exist kind of in everyone's mind around scalable and non-scalable activities. And I think non-scalable activities are typically the best way to find business. If you're looking to serve as a fractional CMO, the people in your immediate network will help you bring a sale in the fastest. I don't think anyone should spend $1 on ads until you're bringing in a lot of money. I honestly don't think you should ever spend money on ads for fractional CMO services. It just doesn't really make sense.
That's mad.
It's an ad, right? And then what? You're going to take them through a download, and then you're going to back end them into an email sequence and get them it's just so much work. Mm-hmm. So this is a much more direct sales approach. So your network is a great place to get started. And oftentimes our members bring in a sale or two from their network, which is exciting. And then they're like, how do I serve them? What's the price for it? All that kind of stuff. What's the contract that I should use? I give them the contract that my lawyer wrote, and then they run that by their personal lawyers, that kind of stuff. And then there's the scalable stuff. So over time, we help our members build what we call ponds. And the idea here is that you don't want to fight in the open market. You don't want to say, shoot, I need business. What is it? Paul McCartney's whole thing, I want to write a song so I can build a pool. You ever hear that one? He's like, I wanted a pool, so I wrote a song. And then the song was very successful, and he got his pool.
Yeah. Any idea which song?
I don't know. No, I don't know. I just know that about the Beatles. I don't know anything else.
Yeah.
I read it on a Snapple cap. So,
All right, cool.
so
known for their lies.
yeah, that's true. So, this idea that like you're fighting in the open market is not going to work for you long term. You're not going to have success if you're always looking in the open market for business. You can at the beginning, and you can win a sale or two, and you can kind of prove this to yourself that it's going to work, and that's cool. But over time, you have to build a defensible strategy. You got to be number one, and that's why I'm so excited about fractional CMO services right now. Because if you Google, there is no definitive fractional CMO for X, whatever it is, for Invisalign dentists. Like, there's no fractional CMO that like has declared it. It's a blue ocean. If I went online and it said SEO for HVAC, I could find a lot of companies that do that. There's probably even a company called SEO for HVAC.com, right? But that doesn't exist for fractional CMOs. So now is the time to build that, put a stake in the ground, declare that you're number one, and you can create a legacy organization out of this. You don't have to just do a single Pringle, I'm the fractional CMO. You can build an agency of fractional CMOs that support companies in a specific niche, and you can go dominate that niche. That's what I'm just like so excited about. Because if I wanted to start up an agency today, just a regular marketing agency, like what niche am I going to choose? Well, it's probably a pretty competitive niche already.
Yeah.
So it has to be hyper local, right? Or you just have to be better than everyone else. If you rely on SEO and you start with a fresh.com, like it's going to take a long time to get your domain reputation up so that you can rank. You got to overpay for PPC if you want it. I mean, it's tough, but for fractional CMOs, it's a hot time for it right now. And our members are building lasting pipelines that they're able to kind of foster, because this is the biggest problem that probably everyone here knows. Just because someone has a need doesn't mean that they can say yes today. You can talk to a company, they'd be like, man, yeah, you're right. We totally need a new website. But our fiscal planning happens in June for July because our year's offset by 6 months. I don't know why some companies do that, but they do, right?
Yeah.
So now like you're stuck waiting until June to see if your proposal is going to get approved.
So now it's like a land grab is what you're saying based on
It's a land grab.
CMO and SEO. Like if you're going to move, now is the time to move, because a few years down the road, it's going to be entirely too competitive if you don't act now. Yeah, which I think is a smart play. So, and I know we're almost at time, and so I want to get a couple more other questions in.
Sure.
So somebody's running into that situation where you were at in that 10 days. They are running out of money. They didn't have all the education that you had. What would you recommend that they do?
Okay, I want you to get a sticky note, and I want you to put this on your monitor and just write "make more offers." That's it. I got that from Frank Kern, and I loved it. He said, if you're not making the money that you want to make, you either aren't making enough offers or you're not charging enough. So it's just offers. It's just reps. It's just getting out there. I have no ability to pressure someone to say yes to me. It's either the right fit or it's the wrong fit. And if it's the wrong fit, I got to move on. So having those reps and just kind of keep cycling it. I had 2 notes on my monitor, kind of in the thick of all of this. I said, make more offers. And the other one was pick up the damn phone. That's it. Pick up the damn phone. Because everyone's like,
call or actually answer the calls.
Call people.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I couldn't afford Ring Central. I just used my T-Mobile line, like I just picked up my cell phone and I have my wired head earbuds, and I just called and called and called and called and called, and I won business. Gun to my head. I got to get business in. I'm picking up the phone. I'm not sending emails. That's not going to do it. I'm picking up the phone. I'll send emails as a campaign long-term because it'll work, yada, yada, keeps people warm. But if I want the business, if I've got to feed my family, I'm picking up the phone. Yep. So anyone who doesn't do that is kind of coming up with bullshit to hide behind.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. When your back's up against the wall, literally pick up the phone.
Pick up the damn phone. Yep.
I love that. Now, what do you think, if you're going to speak to any agencies, any CMOs, like what is the thing that they need to do right now to improve their current standings?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think an easy win for you right now is charge for strategy. If you're giving away marketing strategy as a sales component, you're probably not serving the client at the depth that they need to be served. You're not doing a good enough job. I don't mean to call you out here, but like if they need marketing strategy, they need holistic marketing strategy, not just enough marketing strategy to sell PPC or to sell a website. Right? So what I want you to consider is like, how do you really serve the client? Because if you serve them in totality, the holistic kind of A to Z, you can point to other vendors. Like, I don't do SEO work. I've never wanted to do SEO work. I got a guy I love that does SEO work. We brought him in for our accelerator. He trained everyone on how to find a good SEO company, how to audit an SEO company that would be like incumbent with a client. You start working with a client, they have an SEO company. How do you know that they're any good? What should they be delivering? What should their prices be? All that kind of stuff. And what's exciting about that is like you get smarter at knowing how to solve the problem, but then you delegate it to someone else. So you need to be a marketing strategy expert for your clients. You need to offer that service. And it's the most valuable thing that you can offer because everything else can be commoditized. I can go find, I was working with this marketing agency years ago, and they had the first one-click upsell software. Literally wrote it themselves and then did $10,000 installs in Infusionsoft. Now you can get one-click upsell software for $19 a month on, Shopify, or it comes native in ClickFunnels or whatever. Mm-hmm. So all of that stuff that used to be high priced because it was unique is now, now I can go and find someone in Thailand for like $4 an hour to build me out a 7-page ClickFunnels funnel for $99. Like, it's not great. We all know that it's trash, right? Like, that person's not doing a great job, but it takes a level of understanding to appreciate that it's not a good job.
Right.
And your client might not have that. So they might see your prices at 10 grand for the funnel and then $100 for that guy. They're like, well, let's just risk the $100. And then they just kind of never do anything with it. So all that stuff's getting commoditized. Everything's getting commoditized. What's not getting commoditized is the problem solving. So you need to elevate. You need to have a mentality of elevating to the top role in marketing and serve that for your clients. And then your agency becomes the agency of choice for that organization, not like the kind of enslaved kind of client to your agency, which it can feel like, oh, we have to use them. Oh, we're contracted to use this many hours a month or whatever. It's like, you want them to be like, hey, we have all this work to do. This has to happen first. Then when that's successful, we're going to do this. You want them to lay out the next 6-12 months of development that they need for your agency. And then your agency just like shows up and executes. But you want someone to own that marketing strategy component.
Completely agree. All right, my friend, is there anything else that we have not discussed today that the world should know?
Okay, I got one thing. This is something I'm pretty passionate about. What future do you have for yourself? And I want to just like enroll you in the future that I've declared for myself. And whenever I say it, it makes it more real. And I want you to consider if this is the future you have for yourself. Every single year, I want bigger and better opportunities presented to me. And I want those opportunities to give me an opportunity to make a huge impact and make a huge paycheck. And I want that to grow exponentially over time. And I need to get myself in a position continually to make that happen. A business coach of mine, Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, he says, always make your future bigger than your past. You look at these football stars that, win the Super Bowl and then they, go on and do terrible things. You look at Silento, the guy who's got that Whip and Nene song out of Atlanta, made a ton of money, and then he like shot and killed his cousin, right? He like made his future smaller than his past. You got to make your future bigger than your past. So how do you do that? You got to get yourself in a position continually to solve bigger problems and kind of grow in your ability to support more organizations and create a bigger impact. So if that's your vision for yourself, just consider how you do that. You might do that by joining the board of organizations. That might be your role. You say, I want to go be a member of the board. I've never been on a board before. I got to go get my first one. It's going to be non-compensated. Then I'm going to grow in compensation. And I want to ultimately be on the board of directors of the top, companies in X industry or whatever. That could be a vision for yourself. For me, I want people to come to me with opportunities. I don't want to have to go find them. I want to be so well known that they come to me, they present me opportunities, and then I can say yes or no to them. And when I say yes, I know that I can make a home run, I can make a big impact, and that my what I'm compensated for it always increases. So if your future is bigger than your past, what's your process to get there? That's the question. And it might be, adding fractional CMO services.
I love it. All right. So how can people get a hold of you?
Sweet. So our website, cmox.co. cmox.co. You can head over there, check out the stuff we got. We've got like a cool download, which is the 7 KPIs all CMOs must know. All CEOs must know. So those are great KPIs to track. We also have a Facebook community for fractional CMOs. I drop a bunch of content there. I do a lot of videos. You can go to Facebook and type in Fractional CMO community. And then also the Fractional CMO show. That's my podcast. So come listen to that. I've got interviews with our current members, so you can kind of hear their story. It's kind of their debut from, agency owner or, marketing technician to high paid fractional CMO. And then I also have individual episodes where I share some of these kind of like earworms to kind of help you get your head on some of this inner game stuff that I think is so critical. Kind of going back to the back of the lawnmower. These few things that if you kind of commit to in your life, I think are going to increase your satisfaction, your free time, your happiness, your impact, and your wealth ultimately.
Bingo, bango, my friend. Awesome. Casey, thank you so much for being on, man. This was
Thanks for having me, dude.
Oh. Hope you enjoyed our episode. Please subscribe and review wherever you can. And if you would like to join the Digital Mastermind, go ahead and shoot me an email at jon@digitalmastermind.com or visit us at digitalmastermind.com. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye now.